From the Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Zahra Syed. Our top story tonight. The president of the Center for Budget and Policy Priorities is advising Congress on how to avoid a future government shutdown that was narrowly avoided Sunday. Speaking to the House Republicans, Sharon Parrott is calling for learning from past mistakes to avoid further political and financial turmoil. She emphasized the need for funding bills that address public concerns and stick to agreements reached during debt ceiling negotiations. She has also pointed to the partisan nature of the House's attempts and urged it to follow the Senate's bipartisan approach. In the past, the House has been known to call for cuts, especially in non-military areas that deviate from the debt ceiling agreement. But given the internal party disputes, particularly over Speaker Kevin McCarthy's recent bipartisan decision, it remains uncertain whether Parrott's advice will be heeded. Mark Milley, who retired Saturday as the highest-ranking U.S. military officer, says the armed forces are committed to saving the country, not a dictator. The outgoing chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff made the remarks at a ceremony honoring his service after ex-President Donald Trump seemed to threaten him on his Truth Social platform. Trump has criticized Milley for calls he made to a Chinese general in 2021. These were part of his official duties to reassure Beijing that Washington had no intention of taking military action in the final days of Trump's term. Milley defended the calls as part of his mission to defuse what he called military action between the world's superpowers. He said he would take appropriate action to ensure his safety and that of his family. President Joe Biden praised Milley on Friday as the uncompromising patriot as the Army general prepares to return to civilian life after more than 4 decades. Air Force General Charles Brown Jr. is Milley's successor. He is the second African American to become the highest-ranking military officer in the United States. Former President Donald Trump is being sued by voters in Michigan to prevent him from running for president in 2024. The lawsuit alleges that Trump violated the 14th Amendment's disqualification clause by calling for an attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th of 2021. Similar lawsuits have been filed in Minnesota and Colorado. The disqualification clause of the 14th Amendment prohibits any person from holding public office if they have participated in an insurrection or rebellion against the U.S. government. The lawsuit filed by Free Speech for People argues that Trump's actions on January 6th meet the definition of an insurrection and that he is no longer eligible for public office. Trump has denied any wrongdoing and called the lawsuit a witch hunt. The outcome could have significant implications for the 2024 presidential election. Canada marked Orange Shirt Day on Saturday, paying homage to the victims and survivors of its Indian residential schools. The observance, recognized as National Truth and Reconciliation Day, offers a moment for Indigenous and non-Indigenous Canadians to come together to reflect on the haunting past of these institutions. Addressing the nation on Saturday, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau shed light on the schools' disturbing history. He acknowledged that more than 150,000 First Nations, Inuit, and Métis children forcibly separated from their families between 1867 and 1998. These children were subjected to physical, sexual, and verbal abuse in about 130 boarding schools, which were predominantly run by various Christian groups. The last of these schools ceased operations in the 1990s. The inception of Orange Shirt Day traces back to Phyllis Webstad, who at 6 years old had her orange shirt confiscated upon entering a residential school in British Columbia. Nationwide events including walks, speeches, and ceremonies were organized with a central commemoration at the capital city, Ottawa's Parliament Hill. Meanwhile, investigations continue into the potential unmarked graves at residential school sites. More than 2,000 suspected grave sites are under examination. Bringing more news stories after the break. Stay tuned and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Tensions erupted Sunday at the AlAqsa Mosque in Jerusalem as Israeli police attempted to disperse Palestinian demonstrators. They were protesting hundreds of Israeli settlers who entered the holy site to mark the Jewish holiday of Sukkot. Sukkot began September 29th and continues through to October 6th. In a video, Palestinians can be seen holding the Quran and chanting slogans in defiance. The Jordanian Islamic Waqf Department, which oversees administrative matters in the AlAqsa Mosque compound, said Israeli authorities previously granted access to more than 600 Jewish people. Eyewitnesses reported that settlers entered in the groups. A video released by the Palestinian Governorate of Jerusalem also shows settlers attempting to make animal sacrifices at the mosque site. Israeli police have allowed such settler visits since 2003, drawing strong criticism from Palestinians. AlAqsa Mosque is Islam's third holiest site, while Jews revere the area as a Temple Mount. Yemen is witnessing a rise in suspected measles cases amongst its children. Measles, a highly infectious viral ailment, is a major cause of fatalities amongst children worldwide. By July, the World Health Organization reported Yemen had more than 34,000 probable cases of measles and rubella, with more than 400 resulting deaths. This marks a significant increase from the previous year's 27,000 cases and 220 deaths. According to the United Nations, 27% of infants below 1 year old have either missed or not finished the necessary doses of measles and rubella vaccines. The Yemeni government is collaborating with the WHO, UNICEF, and the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunizations to combat the outbreak. Yemen initiated a vaccine drive across 13 provinces on September 23rd. The campaign's objective is to vaccinate more than 1 million children between 6 months and 5 years of age. Yemen has been grappling with upheaval since 2014, when Houthi rebels aligned with Iran and took control of a significant portion of the country, including its capital, Sana'a. That led to years of war and humanitarian crises. The WHO attributes the surge in measles cases to economic downfall, low earnings, displacement, and reduced immunization outreach. The Afghan embassy in India has announced the end of operations 2 years after the Taliban took control in Kabul. The embassy cited limited Indian support, inability to serve Afghanistan's interests, and lack of adequate personnel as reasons for the mission's closure. Delays in the renewal of visas for diplomats was also mentioned. Many countries, including India, do not officially recognize the Taliban government, but do acknowledge them as the current rulers of the country. This change has put many Afghan embassies in a difficult position. Previously appointed diplomats have resisted handing over control to Taliban-appointed representatives. India will now run the embassy as administrator. Colleges and universities in Canada and the US are becoming flashpoints in the dispute between supporters and critics of Hindu nationalism as practiced by India's ruling government. A recent New York Times report says this ideological divide has worsened since Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Bharatiya Janata Party came to power in 2014. Modi's Hindu-first agenda, known as Hindutva, is leading to conflict in Indian communities worldwide and affecting city councils, school boards, and academic circles. It has also led to riots in some temples and cultural parades. As well, organizations associated with the Hindu nationalism, such as the RSS and the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, actively advocate for Modi's policies abroad. Carleton University researcher Chinaya Jungam notes that there were no such divisions in the Indian-Canadian diaspora before 2014. This has led to concern, particularly in the wake of the murder of the Canadian Sikh activist, whom the Canadian government alleges was killed by the Indian government agents. 23 people, including 4 children, were injured after Iranian authorities violently cracked down on protesters in the southeastern city of Zahra. They were commemorating the first anniversary of the Zahra massacre, in which 100 people were killed by police last year after protests against the death of Mahsa Amini. Amini was a 22-year-old woman who died while in the custody of the country's morality police in September of 2022. Her death immediately led to protests across Iran, including in Zahra, where the police crackdown on demonstrators killed 96 people and injured 300. Since then, Zahra has been seeing ongoing protests every Friday. Social media footage of the last weekend's attacks show injured protesters being carried to medical aid amid the gunfire, while others are dodging tear gas near a mosque. Iranian officials recently reiterated their stance that Amini's demise was due to medical reasons and not police mistreatment. Over 20,000 people gathered at London's stadium for the 8th annual World Halal Food Festival from September 23rd to 24th. The event is recognized as the world's premier halal food festival. Walid Jahangir of Al Jaber Festivals said the festival brings together the flavors of the world under one roof and invites all communities to share and enjoy. The CEO of London Stadium, Graham Gilmore, also stressed the importance of celebrating the food, the music, and the culture of the Muslim community in East London. The Muslim community in the UK makes up for over 6% of the population and more than 4% increase since 2011. The UK halal market is worth between $1 and $2 billion, according to the Halal Monitoring Committee, the country's leading halal certification body. That's all from our Toronto studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.